Welcome back to the program Power to Unite with Elvira. Mapalad po tayo ngayon dahil kakaiba po ang ma-interview natin at walang iba, ang special guest po natin ay galing pa po sa Vatican, si Father Hans Zollner, Society of Jesus, kung saan po ano kayang pag-usapan natin. Pero bago po ninyong matunghayan ang aming pag-usapan, dapat po makilala niyo siya dahil siya po ang Academic Vice President, Professor and Director pa rin po siya ng Institute of Psychology of the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. Ngayon, itong March 2014, nahirang din po siya as one of the members of the newly created Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. At recently, itong taon po, naging presidente na po siya ng Center for the Child Protection ng Institute of Psychology dito po sa Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. Father Hans Zollner, welcome to the program Power to Unite with Elvira. So
Thank you
it's
very
really
much.
a huge privilege on our part that you really oblige, even in such a short notice, if we can interview you. First, I would like to know, because many told me they would like to know the background. Why did you choose to become a priest? Who really inspired you? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about, why, because we know German is really known to be with their technology is really very, very advanced. So we expect maybe you become engineers, but why choose to be, a priest when we know it's not something that Germans will look forward to become one day? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I was born 48 years ago in an area in Germany, in the south of Germany, in the state that is called Bavaria, and in a city, Regensburg, which used to be one of the most Catholic areas in the whole of Germany, and still it is to some extent. And I grew up maybe 70 kilometers from the Czechoslovakian border.
Okay.
So it was very close to the Soviet zone of influence in Europe. Our area was not very much advanced in technology at that time. Okay. It was very rural. In fact, my father comes from a farmer's family.
Okay.
And so I grew up in a little village in an absolute Catholic atmosphere, in a very Catholic family, from both sides of my parents. I became an altar boy very soon, so I grew up as much in the parish as in my family. From the very first years of my life on, it was normal that we went to Mass every Sunday, that I went for catechism, that I became an altar boy, that later on I became the head of the altar boys. I was in the choir of the youth of the parish. I was in the parish council later on. So for me it was somehow the normal air that I was breathing, the faith, the popular piety of our region, a Marian piety, a piety that is very essential to some extent, that centers around Mass and Eucharist. So I was very often also on weekdays in Mass because I was serving as an altar boy. And for me, religious education was always something very interesting, to know more about Jesus, to know more about the saints. The patron saint of my church at home is St. Elizabeth. And I am born on the day of her feast day, so I always consider this as a special privilege and as something that indicated somehow a special vocation to search God.
So how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I do have two younger sisters. Both are married. One is a teacher and a cook at the same time, a teacher for handicapped people, and the other is a nurse. Both have families, and they live close by. My parents are ailing now, and I'm happy that one of my sisters, the nurse, yes, can look after them.
So Father Hans, because you're the only boy, and normally they always hope that they could do other things, but not to become a priest. So how did your parents accept it, when you announced that you wanted to become a priest?
Now, I announced it when I was approaching end of high school, which is in our school system at the age of 18 years.
Ah, okay.
And then I was about to enter into seminary because I wanted to become a priest, but I didn't know whether I become a religious priest or a diocesan priest.
Okay.
So when I told them around Easter, our school finishes in June,
yes.
So it may have been March, April, that I told them for the first time explicitly that I wanted to become a priest. My mother started to cry,
okay.
And my father was very silent, and at a certain point he said, "That is your decision, you go, you follow your call, and if this is not your call, you can always come back." So there was not in the least any kind of obstacle. There was certainly support and certainly support from my other family members, my grandmothers, my grandfathers. So it was very, very nice to feel neither an obligation to become a priest, an expectation, nor any kind of criticism about that. And there is a special thing in my schooling. I went to a public school, not a private or Catholic school. I went to a public school with a specialization in economics.
Okay.
But in the last 2 years of the school, we could choose certain subjects so that you had more lessons in those subjects. And I chose Latin and religious education, not economics.
Okay.
And we had a very good teacher in religious education who introduced us not only to the basics of theology, but also philosophy, social doctrine of the church, scripture, and all what is connected with religious practice. So it was, for me, it was clear that theology is not something abstract, is not something far away from my faith, but it's the expression, necessarily it's the expression of what I believe. Has to be spelled out in an intellectual way, but also is connected to prayer life, to liturgy, to meditation. So we were conducting, for example, liturgies for our companions in school, and there I felt attracted, on the one hand, to guide and to develop such a liturgy with songs, as you do for young people. On the other hand, I was very much attracted by the concepts of theology, thinking through, really trying to rationally, intellectually come to terms with what is faith, what is the central message of the gospel, who is Jesus Christ, and what is the message of the church.
And then why choose psychology? Why major in that? This is not something very easy to understand.
Yeah, for this I have to explain a bit more, because first, as I said, I became a seminarian.
Yes.
And after my first year in seminary, I sensed that I don't want to become a parish priest. I want to work with people, especially in accompanying them and in guiding people in their spiritual journey.
Okay.
So after my first year in seminary, I did my first Ignatian spiritual exercises under the guidance of a diocesan priest who was a director of a retreat house of the Diocese of Regensburg. And during those 10 days of intense spiritual exercises, I somehow perceived what is going on within me. So my interior world was open to me, to my perception, and I became aware that there are movements within my soul, within my heart. And that, I believe, was the starting point, because until then I was very much interested in church history or in dogmatic theology. But then it became clear to me that the inner world has to get more attention.
Yes, yes.
So later on, when I had done already some studies, I had finished theology, I had entered into the Society of Jesus, I had done my novitiate, and worked in a university chaplaincy. But before I was ordained a priest, because I had to wait 5 years after entering the Society of Jesus, the provincial approached me and said, "Wouldn't you like to study psychology?" So he must have seen that
something
it was
new.
there was my interest, and probably there was also the request from the province, but probably he himself being a psychologist, that there is something that could combine well. So I said, yes, I'd really like to do that, and I'd like to do that in an environment and in a program that tries to see how spirituality and psychology can go together.
Yes.
So that you have a psychology that is integrated within a human vision that includes the Christian anthropology. So how you see how Christianity, how Catholic Church sees the human being, because this is very important for the values that are transmitted also in a subtle way in accompanying people. They sense what you stand for. Yes. So it was decided that I go to Rome, to the Institute of Psychology of the Gregorian University, and I did my master, you would say here, the licentiate in psychology. I did my internship, and then they requested that I come back with a doctorate so that I can teach there.
Magbabalik po ang programa ng Power to Unite with Elvira.
Ako po si Johnny Gomez ng SOS, Serbisyo Ora Mismo Sigurado. Manood po kayo dito sa ating malayang talakayan, dito sa ating masiglang usapan. Tandaan po ninyo, layunin natin ang maiangat ang kaalaman ng ating mga kababayan sa katwiran at karapatan. Nationwide and worldwide, mapapanood at mapakikinggan sa DZRJ 8:10 AM ang Radyo Bandido TV.
Watch and listen to SOS, Serbisyo Ora Mismo Sigurado, Monday to Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
The psychology that we are talking right now, which is very appropriate, is really centering on the needs of everyday, family, the needs of the children, the needs of the parents. Trying to bridge them, make them understand. Because, we always heard in a family, the children right now, the younger generation, will always tell their parents, you don't understand us. And the parents will say, you don't understand. That means to say, their world 20 years ago and 20 years later doesn't blend anymore. So this is where the psychologists, especially if you are also a priest, you have this background of theology, spirituality, that is where you can come in to become, as a messenger of peace for them, because you try to understand them. And then, what is so nice, because of the pastoral and spiritual care that you can tell them, so they don't see you as a threat. They see you as a friend trying to help them, isn't it?
Yes,
this is
certainly.
how I interpret why you choose to be a psychologist.
You describe it very well, and I think it is very important that one understands that the psychology that we stand for is something that may not focus on psychological deep difficulties, pathology, severe disease.
Yes, it's not that. Yeah.
No, it is, as you say, the day-to-day problems where we have difficulties to communicate to each other, where we have difficulty to understand each other, where we have difficulty to express our needs, and how we can integrate them into a vocational life. In fact, the Institute of Psychology of the Gregorian is meant especially to help people to develop a sense of their proper vocation, to find out what is your vocation as a layperson, as a religious, as a priest, and to see where are those inconsistencies, where do I not live up to what I tell people and what I tell God and what I tell myself.
Okay.
So to find out where are the dynamics that bring me away from what is dear to my heart. Because I want to do that, but somehow I find myself in difficulty to do that. And I believe certainly that people are helped by this approach. And what I understand more and more, working with people over the years now, that there are certain areas of human life that can be helped by psychology. And by interviewing people and by having some sort of colloquium of encounter and of therapy maybe. But there is an area, there is a level of functioning in the human life, in the human soul, that needs more attention also from the spiritual side. There are things that have to be addressed on a deeper level, and therefore I believe, and I've seen it works, if I may say so, that people who are helped also on the spiritual level reach a peace, reach an understanding, reach a personal integration that many people look for but can't find.
With so many problems that we are encountering, this is the kind of psychologist with a heart, with the spirituality, who knows what is the best and who knows what God wants to convey. Because this is more important. It's not money making. It's really more with care and love and, trying to tell you Jesus loves you, and not the world is not that bad, because Jesus believes that you have a good heart. So bring the goodness in you, So I think this is the kind of approach that we need to relate to people, I don't know, because this is how I understand by what you're telling me.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I would describe it in the same way. And I was happy enough in the recent years, as the Dean of the Institute of Psychology, I had the occasion to visit many of our graduates around the globe. And in many countries, our graduates have set up schools for religious and priests who train as formators, because our specialty is how people who are in formation, religious formation, in novitiates, in formation houses, in theologates, in seminaries, how to really develop a personality that integrates the human and the spiritual part, as St. John Paul II asked for in the famous document 𝗨ሔር 𝗶𝘁𝗵, which is the foundation of any kind of priestly or religious formation and vocation. So I visited a number of our graduates in different countries, in different contexts, and what is really, for me, very consoling is that they can help, they can work with many people of all kinds who are engaged within the church and sometimes also outside the church, and they can help them to bring out the potential of living in an authentic way, in a credible way, in a dedicated way, their vocation. So it is really amazing for me, and I can say I feel very privileged that I work in Rome with people from all over the world, and I have seen how this formation then pays off in wherever they are and whatever they do when they try to transmit this message, because it is, as you say, it is something that is very much searched for, but very few people can offer that, in the combination of the human accompaniment and the spiritual accompaniment. Because, you could find it in confession if the confessor is a person who can understand, who can listen well, who has the time to listen well enough, and then can also counsel in an understandable way. Unfortunately, in many parts of the world, this is not the case, because people either are very much under pressure of time and they don't listen well enough, or they are not really listening and perceiving what is the real question behind the sins that the person confesses, so that I can encounter a person and I can also give some advice that is helpful to live out the gospel in the day-to-day life. And over the last 12 years since I am at the Institute of Psychology of the Gregorian, and since I teach and offer accompaniment to our students, I have seen the growth of many of them. We take in very few every year because we select them very carefully. We want to see not only where they are, but also the potential for growth. And if you see from the first year to the fourth year, because our program is of 4 years, including the internship, you see such a growth, such a willingness also to take on the inner dynamics and to work through them. And then in the end, they are really willing to pass this on also to the people to whom they are sent, because then they return to their countries, they are given responsibilities like being a rector or a spiritual director or a novice mistress or something like that. And there is a real inner sense of responsibility and co-responsibility for the good of the people. And I found in almost all of them, I find really this attention to what is the next possible step for the person, so that we can accompany them in a way that they are invited to grow, but they are also helped to grow. And it's not as if you ask them to leap, but to take the next possible step in their human and in their spiritual journey.
That was very interesting, the topic, but we will later discuss it more, sa pagbabalik po ng Power to Unite with Elvira.
Ito po ang inyong kaibigan Jimmy Morato, nag-aanyaya sa inyo sa inyong palatuntunang Tsa-tsahin mo baby. Dito pa rin sa inyong paboritong AM station sa buong Philippines at sa buong mundo, DZRJ 810 AM Radyo Bandido TV.
Watch and listen to 𝗘𝗶𝘃𝗵 Baby, Monday to Friday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
How do you feel when you were appointed as one of the members for the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of the Minors? How do you feel?
I mean, I was surprised, I was very happy, and I felt very privileged, and I'm grateful to the Holy Father that he appointed me together with the 7 first members of the commission, because there were 2 stages of the composition of that commission. So I got a phone call on Friday in March 2014, Friday maybe at noon,
yes.
And on Saturday it was announced that the commission members would be the 8 that were named in a first moment. And then some months later, when we had met for the first time in May 2014, the 8 of us, it became clear that we needed to expand the commission, most of all because we were only from Europe or from America. Okay. One North American, Cardinal O'Malley, and one from South America, from Argentina, but the rest were Europeans. Okay. And it was clear to us from the very first second that we needed to expand so that the whole church is represented, the Catholic Church, the global church. One, because there is much expertise, much knowledge out there. Yes. It's not only in America and Europe. And also because we wanted to highlight that the protection, the safeguarding of minors is a global concern for the Catholic Church.
Yes, yes.
So we were invited to submit names to the Holy See from Africa, from Latin America, and from Asia.
Asia Pacific, yes.
And we found then 2 people from Australia and New Zealand, and we were looking for somebody from Asia, and we were happy to find Dr. 𝗘𝗶𝘃𝗵, who works here at the Ateneo de Manila in the Emmaus Center. Because he is an expert in psychology. He has done his internship in a specialized clinic for treatment of sex offenders in the United States. So he brings to the Commission a special kind of expertise that was lacking before. So he's the only person from Asia for the moment, but he has a very high competence in this field, and we are happy that he has joined us.
So we will continue our discussion in another part. We will have part 2 because it's very interesting. I think one episode is not enough. Sana nagustuhan po ninyo aming part 1 interview with Father Hans Zollner. Napakaganda po. I'm sure lahat po kayo ay very interesting din kung ano pa yung susunod naming discussion sa susunod na linggo dito po sa programa ng Power Tonight with Elvira.
Hi, I'm Nicole Jacinto. Join us on Healthline with Makati Med as we discuss the latest health and medical topics with doctors from Makati Med. For a healthier and uplifting lifestyle, tune into Healthline with Makati Med on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. Radio Bandido TV. You've got questions, we've got answers.
Watch and listen to Healthline with Makati Med every Monday from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Welcome back po tayo sa part 2 ng ating programa Power to Unite with Elvira, kung saan po nagkaroon tayo ng magandang interview with Father Hans Zollner nung nakaraang linggo about child abuse. Sino siya? Siya po ang Academic Vice President, Professor, at the same time Director po ng Institute of Psychology of the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. Recently, noong March 2014, na-appointed siya as one of the original, sabi nila, G8 members po ng Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minor, and recently itong taon naging presidente po siya ng Center for Child Protection of Institute of Psychology of the Gregorian University in Rome. Father Hans, what is really primarily the role of the commission?
Now, in fact, this kind of commission, as it was established, is quite unique.
Okay.
In various ways. First of all, because of the composition of the members, and first of all, because almost half of all the members are women. So we are 17, and 8 are women.
Okay.
6 are lay women, and 2 are religious women.
Okay.
And then we have 4 lay men and 4 priests, plus Cardinal O'Malley as the president.
Okay.
So this is also something unique. You don't find it in any other body of the Holy See. That almost half of them are women. Then the second thing is that our language, our main language, first language is English, second language is Spanish, and third language is Italian. So this is also something quite singular in the Vatican world. Then about our task, the Holy Father has created this commission, first of all, to advise him, to give him counsel on matters that concern justice for victims and survivors of sexual abuse of minors, and to counsel and advise him on the safeguarding of minors. So what we are meant to do is to look into all the issues that are connected, and you are right, there are many issues that are connected to the sexual abuse of minors within the Church, to different areas, to social justice, to the area of faith and how we understand the church, to matters that concern the youth, obviously, the family life, and the scientific research on that. So, but the focus of this commission is to see what is there specifically under the headline of safeguarding of minors, and so we see what are the guidelines of the different bishops' conferences. We see what are the best practices in various parts of the world that can be shared to other parts of the church, and what are the policies that are in place on paper and that are in place in actual behavior and in actual following up. Because you see that in many parts of the world, this is now an issue that is talked about much within the church, outside the church, and many policies are developed. Many states in this world, they start to develop new legislation on it. Normally it becomes more strict, and also in the church there is a new sense of responsibility for that. So the law has changed within the last years, and now it is about the question is, how do we really implement what we know about the issue, and how do we follow up on what the church asks the local churches to do, the religious congregations and orders to do, the Catholic institutions to do, and how can we help so that the church as such and its institutions become a safe haven for minors.
Don't you think, Father Hans, that because we believe there's a separation of church and state, right, in several countries. So we understand you're trying to help the religious community in each country, the church, and also people in Vatican to understand the global issue pertaining to child abuse, child trafficking, all these things. But the government of each country is also doing something. Don't you think these two, you are doing something here, advising them, because you're more on advising and giving guidelines, but not imposing, right? You just gather information, try to understand what is the best way, to reach out to them, to solve and to stop all these kind of abuses. And here the government side said, we are also doing something. So where will the victims fail now? To listen to what the government can offer, and then, or to listen to what the church can offer. Did you have an idea, something that might occur?
Now, that depends very much on the situation in the country and the relationship between church and state in that country.
Okay.
I give you some examples. When I was in Chile 2 years ago, the responsible person in the Chilean government for the protection of minors wanted to see me and to discuss what the church as such and the church in Chile, in Latin America, can do together to learn from each other. I believe that in many areas we will have the same population and the same kind of, let me say, possibility to approach youth. But sometimes the church will have another type of approach and the state will have another area of responsibility.
Yes.
So they can combine well if there is an understanding that they can work together. In other parts of the world where the church is a tiny minority, like in India, I've been there a year and a half ago, and I learned about the Indian legislation, National Act on the safeguarding of minors, which is very strict, perhaps more strict than in any European country. And I've seen that in some states of India, religious are members of the safeguarding board of the regional state. So you see that even in India, which is certainly not a Christian country, that expertise, that knowledge and that dedication to the safeguarding of minors is welcomed by the state. If you consider that in India, I don't know how many very renowned Catholic institutions offer education to the youth, it is understandable that the state, even a non-Christian state, a government, is interested to know about that and to take in that experience that we can offer. I want to expand also a bit more, because we are also in contact with Protestant churches, because they see that they have also to grapple with these problems, and they don't have, in some places at least, they don't have any much knowledge about that, yes. So they consult us. It's when we were starting to work with the Jesuit University in 𝗄𝗶𝘃𝗿 in Indonesia, it was our intention that we reach out also to the Muslim community, because Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country in the world, and many students from the Muslim faith study at the Jesuit University in 𝗄𝗶𝘃𝗿. So learning about the child protection is supposed to help also other communities, not only within the Catholic Church. And I see this educational effort that we do as something to contribute so that the Catholic Church becomes a champion in the safeguarding of minors.
Through education. Yeah. Magbabalik po ang programa ng Power Tea Night with Elvira.
Ako po si Bernard Tan, ang kakampi sa katotohanan at katarungan, ang kakampi ng mga OFWs. Samahan niyo po ako dito sa DZRJ 8:10 AM sa Radyo Bandido TV, at syempre sama-sama po nating labanan ng mali at ipaglaban ang tama.
Watch and listen to Kakampi, Monday to Friday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Mga kapugad, ito po si Attorney Darwin Cañete. Inaanyayahan ko po kayong manood at makinig sa aming programang Pugad Vloggers dito po sa DZRJ 8:10 AM Radio Bandido TV.
Watch and listen to Pugad Vloggers Monday to Friday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Father Hans, a child is born, it's not because they wanted to be born. They did not ask to be born. So once they are born, it's the parents who are responsible of bringing them should feel that they have to take care of them. It's not just like a machine that you just produce and then don't do anything. Because the children are so cute. They are all young, smiling. They are so innocent of what will happen to them in the future. Victims of war, victims of famines, victims of slavery, So it's not an excuse that they have to be exploited just because of poverty, right? So that's why in your dealing, you have been visited Chile, Indonesia, and also talked to some Protestant member. So you feel that what you have been doing now is paving way. Also, there's a solution coming out because it seems that the world is interested to help solve the problem.
Now, you are really right that this is of huge importance that the governments change policy, and I see from wherever I go, and I've traveled now to 4 continents, that the awareness has risen about the child rights and about how to protect them. But we talk about huge problems. We talk about child labor, child soldiers, slavery. We talk about prostitution. We talk about any kind of emotional neglect, physical neglect. And if you only consider that according to credible statistics, every 4th girl under 18 years is subject to sexual abuse. Every fifth boy in the world is subject to sexual abuse. And if you add all the other things where children are subject to violence of any kind or emotional neglect, so we come to a huge dimension of the responsibility of the state, of non-governmental organizations and of the church to do the best so that children may be protected. So in fact, what we do is to try so that there is an attitude change within the church, so that the church takes on that as a vital part of her ministry more and more, to proactively promote the safety of children and adolescents, and also of vulnerable adults. But what we can see here is that it's starting. We have to do much more, and we have, especially in some countries where there is some kind of resistance to talk about child sexual abuse because of cultural reasons. We have to work much so that the people take on this as an important issue for their social work, for their educational work, and within the church as a spiritual work. So I believe that the church can do much so that people realize how important it is to protect the treasure of humanity, who are young people.
Yes. This should not only be church matter, right? This is also pertains also with the government, so that now we see there's a dialogue ongoing. So how do you see the solution that the university or any educational institute can do to help?
I think there are 2 points here. One is, as a Catholic Church, we have unique possibilities to connect people.
Okay.
We are in every place, or almost every place in this world, and we are at the grassroots level and at the highest level of responsibility.
Okay.
So it is recognized from all over the world that the Catholic Church is the only institution that really covers everything in almost every country in this world. So what we can do is to connect people. And when you connect people, state-run institutions, non-governmental institutions, and church institutions, you realize that there is a huge amount of things, of projects, of work that is done in favor of protecting minors. So one thing is simply to connect people and to realize and to make them realize that there is much of overlap in the interest, maybe not always in the method, but certainly if you combine people and if you combine the impact, the result will be much higher, much better for, in the sense that we work for, that is, to protect minors. The second thing is that certainly the key factor is education. And next week I'm invited by the government commission for safeguarding of minors in Austria. So the lady who is a politician has invited me, the lady president of this commission has invited me to talk about how the church moves on in various parts of the world. Because in Austria they have done a good job with this commission, they have listened to victims, they have done whatever could be done to help these survivors of abuse. And now the next step should be, how can we as a state community, but also in different church institutions and NGO, what can we do so that children are protected? How can we train teachers? How can we train coaches, sports associations, scouts, choirs, whatever youth activities you have? What can we do for the professional associations, medical doctors, psychotherapists, whatever, whoever comes in contact with youth has to be trained in how do I detect that abuse may have happened, and what needs to be done so that people do not step over boundaries, professional boundaries and personal boundaries, so that they don't approach youth in an inappropriate way.
I think what is important is to awakening the caring side of each one, that we have to help one another. If we can avoid it, try to help avoid it, you know.
Exactly.
And this is what the youth needs right now, is to reach out, to be able to share, you know, their problem and to be listened to, you know. So And Father Hans, so what does your advice, because you have been to the Philippines for the past 2 days, you talk about it to the Catholic Bishop Conference to the Philippines. So how do you see the acceptance of what you have shared with them and the concern that they have? Do you encounter many questions about the problems that you have here in the Philippines?
First of all, we were very grateful that the Bishop Conference took the initiative and invited us to come here. Not many bishops' conferences, especially in Asia, have done that. So it is a major step, I would say, and it is very courageous and very forward-looking by the Bishops' Conference. The President and Cardinal Tagle, they are very much committed, as are the bishops that we have encountered. It was a very fruitful encounter. We presented our topics, the areas of concern. There were many questions, there were good interaction, there was really, for me, an amazing amount of attention and patience in listening, hours and hours of introduction to topics, of discussion. I was really very much surprised that the bishops were willing to go into depth, and they were very sensitive to the issue. They were they could present very well their questions, their concerns, which are different from Western countries. So we have to pay attention to the cultural context. Here, for example, what is not so much, at least the case in Western countries, child labor, trafficking, child soldiers, even in this country. So you see that sexual abuse of minors and the protection against it is one concern, but there are other concerns that have to be taken into account. And therefore, I was also happy to present the program of the Center for Child Protection here, and I hope that we can work with the Ateneo de Manila and maybe with other institutions to promote that, which offers an education to people in ministry, to people in psychology, to people who work with youth. So, but the major question is, we can assist, we can offer something, but it has to be implemented in a culturally sensitive way within the context of this country, of these cultures of the Philippines, because you have many cultures here. So in different languages, what is the legal situation here in this country? What is the safeguarding institutions of the government here, from the local level to the highest level? So this has to be done in a way so that people can understand the concern. They can see that this is not something imposed from the West, but it's something to help, so that your gift that you have in this country, so many young people, are protected in the best way possible.
To give them a very rosy picture, And because you see, most of those committed here are sometimes members of their own family, uncles, sometimes parents. But how about the role of the priest in their, how they call this, child abuse? Or we have also certain, although it's very minimal, the pedophile case. What does the stand of the church here? Because I think sometimes, we tend to just keep quiet about it, So we talk about this because this is very normal in the society. It's happening, in the media. But how about those committed by the priest,
Yeah, we talked about the cultural sensitivity about whether to denounce an abuse or not. And we would certainly encourage, and the bishops themselves spoke about that, if a family, if the parents of a child see that there is an inappropriate relationship of one of their children with a priest, that they approach the bishop, they approach the vicar general or whoever, and that they talk about it, and that they are willing to help that this priest stops abusing a minor. This is not easy, because we know that in this kind of culture, losing face or being shamed publicly is probably the worst you can encounter here. But it is for the good of that child and of other children that you have to take action. So the church is very clear. If there is a suspicion, the priest is suspended, and maybe also he will be
Reprimanded,
he will be reprimanded, of course. But if it is a serious case, he will also be he will lose his clerical state.
I think that's a better idea, because right now we have to be practical, and this is all over the world now, so it should not be hiding them again.
No.
I think the bishop has to take a drastic step into action, because as you said, what we need is to prevent future victims.
Exactly.
It's already a mistake that is committed, but we should not try to protect them, but rather protect the next generation.
Exactly.
So I think this is quite very interesting that Vatican is doing something. So this is a very interesting encounter with you, Father Hans. How I wish we could have another 2 more episode, but maybe next time, because there are so many things we can talk. So itutuloy po namin sa pagbabalik ng Power to Unite with Elvira. Hello everyone, for those who are always tuning in and listening to DCRJ 810 AM Radio Bandido TV, here I am again, once again inviting you to watch and to listen also to Power to Unite with Elvira every Saturday from 5 to 6:30 p.m.
Watch and listen to Power to Unite every Saturday from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes. Simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
So any message, Father Hans, to the Filipino televiewers?
Thank you very much for this occasion. Thank you for listening to what we have said here. I hope that in this rich country, rich in the sense of many young people and many resources to grow young people and to help them to develop a strong personality and a strong faith, I hope that all of you who are engaged in working with youth help them, protect them, and certainly support them in their growth, in speaking out in what is not right, in developing their own competence, and in developing also what is the sensitivity to help each other, so that this community here in the Philippines may become a stronghold of the safety of minors.
Napakaganda po na mensahe ni Father Hans Zollner para sa ating bayan. Talaga po, ang child problems ngayon sa buong mundo ay talaga po pinag-uusapan. Nakita po natin, even Vatican themselves are also concerned. Kaya ang maganda sa nangyari dito sa aming Part 1 and Part 2 interview with Father Hans, nakikita niyo talaga ang Santo Papa nakikinig na ngayon at gumagawa ng hakbang paano ba natin mapoprotektahan ang mga kabataan. So ang simbahan po ay gumagawa na rin ng step reaching out, and what is so nice, makikita natin hindi lang po taga-simbahan ang kanilang pinupuntahan, kundi they are trying to work out, having dialogue even with the government. Kasi dito, importante malaman ng mga abuse o ng mga biktima na talaga ang Diyos po ay hindi natutulog. Maswerte po ang ating bayan, ang problema po natin ay hindi kasing tindi na ibang bansa because of our faith. Dito nakikita natin, importante ang role ng pamilya to prevent this kind of problem that is happening in the 5 continents of the world. The parents should really be there to guide and give them the right moral values. And the church will always be there. Jesus will always be there for you. Yan po ang tandaan natin. Marami po na mabigyan ng pag-asa. What is so important, we see hope and light that there is solution that is coming in for the future, leader of our world, di ba? Itong mga kabataan. Kaya napakaganda at maswerte po tayo na bigyan tayo ng pagkakataon ng isang expert, isang psychologist na binibigyan tayo ng idea na talaga po ang problema ng mga bata hindi po dapat i-stick aside, kundi dapat bigyan ng tamang solution. Sana nagustuhan po ninyo aming episode. Hanggang sa muli dito po sa programa ng Power to Unite with Elvira.
and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those